How you doing?
Okay.
Been very
Yeah.
busy.
So I was in training last week, so I underestimated how much time it's gonna take to catch up this week. Because when you're in training, like you pause all your work and you're not working, then you come back to all these emails and things that you need to do.
I know.
Yeah.
Oftentimes when we get our mentors on board,
Hmm.
we usually prepare them psychologically. We tell them, hey, it's not just about putting you out there on our LinkedIn. I mean, it's going to be a series of a very long journey. I think it might be a lifetime journey because
Yeah.
even when Forbes engages with the entrepreneurs, their mentors,
Mhm.
Forbes usually takes them through a whole series. They invite them to different countries. They
Hmm.
invite them for different advice. So I hope now you'll just be ready because now also IMVC is the same. So many projects ahead. You might need you to be
Yeah.
on toes so many times.
We
You know?
will land the ropes. We will be okay at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let me introduce myself again. John, founder of Youth Mentors and VCs. We are doing this just to have a brief intro overview as well
Mhm.
because we're still setting up our live studio. The moment we'll be ready, we don't want to be there, and then now we're still off guard. At least now I want to get
Okay.
clear. We'll record this one so that people can also go and watch it, for future reference before we do it even bigger and better. I'll let my
Okay.
colleague introduce himself.
Hi Audrey. My name is
Hi.
my name is Munene, co-founder of Ymvc, and basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to build bridges to various mentors and mentees so that
Mhm.
for the purpose of building a better tomorrow for our continent. Because we feel like right now everybody in our generation is still wondering why we're not a superpower with all the resources that we have. So yeah, so it's about time we had that talk. And yeah, you're the people with the experience to impact the people who are coming to see the light, the future ahead. So yeah, we
Yeah.
yeah.
That's great.
As you said,
Yeah,
you're the guys we are craving for, the youth.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So now we want to dive deeper into you. Now our
Hmm.
side is done. Now it's you all through. Okay. So maybe you can introduce yourself because we are recording this. People will see and they'll want to know you again. Me, I know you,
Mhm.
Yes.
but my people out here maybe will know you better. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, John, and thank you, Munene. Just for introduction purposes again, my name is Audrey Kemuma. I'm a business resilience professional with 12 years experience. I began my career at PricewaterhouseCoopers, which is a global consulting firm. I spent the first 10 years of my career there, two of which I spent in the US on secondment program. I then returned to Kenya and started working or practicing in the risk assurance segment of the business. 2 years ago, I took a different turn and moved into healthcare. I'm currently with the Nairobi Hospital, where I'm the head of risk, quality, and compliance. Um, Matters education, I hold an MBA from Washington State University. My undergraduate is from the University of Nairobi, Lower Kabete campus. They commonly refer to it as Kabete Pesa. So I studied finance at the University of Nairobi. Um, Professionally, I'm a certified risk manager. I took a risk management course with the Institute of Risk Management. I'm also a certified anti-money laundering specialist with the Association of Certified Anti-Money Laundering Specialists in the US. And I'm a certified public accountant of Kenya, though I'm not practicing. Lately, I've been growing my quality career, and of course, there's a lot that comes with that from the trainings. And I'm also just in the process of enrolling for membership with the National Quality Institute, which is run by the Kenya Bureau of Standards. They happen to hold the license for quality accreditations locally from the ICE organization that is based off in Switzerland, in Geneva, I believe. Family-wise, I am a mom of 2 children. I have a 9-year-old and I have a 3-year-old. My personal interests out of work include reading. I like reading. I'm an avid reader. I read fiction. I read motivational books. I read self-help books, all kinds of books. I like baking. I love nature. I love children. I love children. Anything to do with children and charities around children are close to my heart. Yeah, and I'm an amateur golfer. Yeah, so that's largely about Audrey.
Yeah, maybe my first question would be, does it mean people who love reading have glasses with them? Because I'm seeing every person who says they love reading glasses. Tell me more about that. Is it because of reading?
Yeah, could be, but I doubt. Because reading could either, so the glasses come from, if you have an eye problem, then you're gonna have glasses. But I've had that before, that glasses tend to indicate that you're sort of intelligent, so it's a good thing to have them. Maybe you should consider having a pair of glasses, but really no, that's just on a light note.
Okay. Okay. Also, maybe you can touch about the anti-money laundering thing that you mentioned. I don't know how is that happening.
So anti-money laundering really is illegal activities to clean up dirty money, if I might put it in the simplest forms. So if you have proceeds of corruption and you want to cover them up, or if you've stolen from somewhere, any form of stealing, yeah, or somebody has stolen in a different country and they're sending you the money, say, for example, to Kenya, to sort of camouflage and make that money look as though it was from clean projects. So what you do is how a syndicate would happen, for example, if you receive bribes, say, of about 20,000 daily, you could be banking that in little amounts such that the bank doesn't detect, yeah? And then once your account gets to a certain amount, or you could have received a lump sum upfront. So maybe someone bribes you and pays you 1 million upfront. But of course, you can't take all that money to the bank without a proper explanation. So you start depositing that money into the bank in little chunks. And then once it gets to a good balance, you decide, I'm now going into money market investments, or going to buy a bond with the government. And once you start receiving interest and your principal, then when you're asked what's the source of your money, you act as though that money is from clean investments, such as the money market or wherever you are holding. You recently saw Kenya put on the grey list by the Financial Action Task Force. So that means we are a country that can't be trusted in terms of how we run our financial operations. Our laws are not really clear, or they don't support the greater good of ensuring that we don't have money or proceeds of crime being concealed or being covered up in our country. I believe we must be, it might be an African country problem that you can walk into a car with 10 million in a suitcase, in a briefcase, and just buy a car. In a developed world, ideally, that would not happen, because the checks would be really tight to check what is the source of this money. If you're working with 10 million in a briefcase, you must have a good reason. Then we have the financing of terrorism aspect, where the money might be from a clean source, but you want, the end game is to use it for something dangerous. So for example, what happened at Westgate, if you remember, there were banks mentioned. I guess for the sake of this recording, we will not mention the name of those banks because they're still operating in the country. But oblivious, or maybe because the controls to detect terrorism financing need to be really stringent, and we were not at that point as a country. Money went through a certain bank, a very reputable bank, and they ended up having that money go to Isili, and then there were rounds done with that money, and eventually it financed what happened at Westgate. So that's what money laundering looks at largely, just ensuring as an institution institution are you carrying, or are you dealing with clean money? And as an individual, what are your values and virtues around your sources of income and your sources of money?
Wow, that's a huge topic we really want to go into, but
Yeah.
we'll save
Yeah.
it for a bigger show. Okay, before I let my colleague come in, there's a time we saw you on the magazine speaking about climate. Maybe you can tell us your passion and what notion you're trying to push on climate.
Oh, before we go to climate, so from an entrepreneur perspective, you might be thinking, how does money laundering concern me? So some of the ventures that entrepreneurs take require funding, and you find ventures coming up to fund you. So when someone is approaching you to provide funding for your project or for whatever you're venturing into, you need to know the source of that money. So it's one way entrepreneurs can look at it, so that you don't end up having a very bright idea, but you end up receiving funding from the wrong sources, and then you're implicated in the process. And of course, you'd go down with your idea. Should things ever go wrong, your idea is gone. The venture that you're trying to start is gone, and your name is really gone, and your reputation is gone. So from an entrepreneurial perspective, that's how you could look at it.
Yeah.
And then coming to your second question on climate, you've mentioned Asia is extremely hot. I'm sure it's not been like that in the last maybe 10 to 20 years. Nairobi is also very hot. I don't know if Munene, are you in Nairobi, or where are you currently?
Yeah, I'm in Nairobi right now.
Yeah, you're in Nairobi, and
I can relate to the weather.
and we've had a few very hot weeks. And you know how our housing is done. Really, we don't have air conditioning in most of our houses. We depend on the temperature to really regulate itself. But you're getting to a point that some nights you really actually can't sleep. So that's one of the effects of climate change. And climate change results from ignoring the natural consequences of nature. And the natural consequences of nature are applicable even to other factors that are not climate. So when you think about it, the human activities over time, since the industrialization age, have been releasing gases into the atmosphere. And what happens when those gases are released into the atmosphere is that they create a greenhouse effect. If you've walked into a greenhouse where someone is farming tomatoes or something, you'd notice it's very warm. So what these gases we do when we drive around, and your gas, anytime you drive around, these companies that are in manufacturing, that are using heavy fuels, and any sort of activity really releases these gases into the atmosphere. So over time, they become so much such that they sort of form a carpet a carpet in the air that is near the ground. And what happens is that the natural process of the earth reflecting heat back into the environment is interfered with. And so we end up trapping the heat. What happens when you trap the heat? You find that generally the world is warming. And that's why you'd find we have unbearable temperatures. There are areas that have wildfires going on. Right now, it sounds a far-fetched idea for Nairobi when we think of wildfires, which we see happening in Canada, in California. But if we don't do something about climate right now, in the next 5 to 10 years, maybe we will be having wildfires in Nairobi. We end up having droughts. You saw the very bad drought we had in 2022 that affected the northern part of the country. And if you remember, people were joking that you could buy livestock, cattle and sheep and goats at 1,000 shillings. But it's not a laughing matter, because those are effects of climate change. And we need to be cognizant as individuals and as corporates and even as entrepreneurs. How are the activities you're doing impacting the environment? And what can you do now to ensure that even as you get into these activities, maybe you're yet to begin your journey. So can you think about inculcating climate issues into the design of your business, such that when your business kicks off, it's actually protecting the environment and not harming it? I hope that sort of helps just explain it in very layman terms.
Yeah, I'm in the manufacturing industry, and we produce plant-based products. And one of the reasons now we speak about is also why we're doing prime places, the effects we've seen with the maybe let's say dairy production,
Yes.
when it comes to emission of gases from the cows and everything.
Methane. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But that's another thing. We'll also put it down. And once you're doing an interview, a big interview, do part 1 and part 2 of those different subjects. Yeah.
We will certainly need to prepare.
Yeah. Yes, relating to your risk management expertise, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, majority of the people don't, especially the young guys, they don't know about quality assurance in terms of business. When you start from, like, let's say, a small business to when you're growing, when you're scaling, So, what is your advice to, in your experience, when somebody is starting small, let's say I'm Lubia, I'm Munene. I've started a small business. It's not trading, but it's more like manufacturing, like what he does, and consulting, like what I do. So, what are some of the quality assurances that somebody can pick up and build upon, so that to mitigate risk in future?
Okay. From a quality perspective, so we look at it from a quality perspective, right?
Yeah.
Quality is all about your customer. So in whatever situation you are, think of quality in terms of thinking about your customer. So for example, I work in a hospital. For us, quality centers on the customer, who is the patient. So you're looking at what does the patient expect and how do we actually deliver that. So if you transpose that to a manufacturing entity like what John does, you need to think of what are you doing and who exactly are you doing this for? So you've spoken that you're manufacturing plant-based products. Are they for consumption? Are they maybe for beauty or cosmetic? And who is the target customer of that product? Then you have to think of the customer in terms of really the principles of quality. And some of the principles of quality, one is customer focus. You have to ensure that everything that you do thinks of the customer. So if I'm buying, for example, I have a bottle of honey on my desk that somebody just delivered. So if I'm buying a product from you, would I come back again? Would I say that's a proper product that you're selling to me, such that I would want to come back to you? If you're in a business of manufacturing, you're definitely not working alone, because man is not an island. You probably have people that supply you the inputs into your manufacturing process, and then for you to arrive at the output. And your output will only be as good as your input. So if you're looking at the people that you're doing business with, what kind of products are they supplying you, and how do you ensure they meet the quality that they're supposed to meet, such that when you come to the production process, you're actually using good inputs? That's another way you could look at it. You need to look at issues around leadership. When you're having and running an organization, how have you structured the organization such that there's proper leadership? Because leadership provides direction to the people that actually perform the work on the ground, and ensure that that process actually works. So when going through the quality management process, the good thing, there are standards that guide you. They provide the process and they provide the principles. And all you have to do is to then sit and work with that framework and see how you put things together, so that you ensure that you don't have quality today and tomorrow there's no quality. So one thing you've realized about entrepreneurs in our part of the country, or even when someone is starting a business, I believe you've walked into some restaurants where when they started off very well. So there was quality food being served. Customers were happy about the portions. Customers were happy about the cleanliness. Then you go there 6 months later, the business is sort of run down. The quality of the food has gone down. The portions have gone down. If you look at the hygiene, and then you decide as a person, I'm never going to go back to this restaurant. But it's not because they still don't buy into the idea. They didn't really think about a long-term approach on how to maintain this quality that you begin with, such that you remain consistent. And I believe the one thing that differentiates successful businesses from non-successful businesses is consistency. So that's what a quality program and quality assurance will do for your business.
So what is usually the starting point? Is it getting a risk manager to your organization, or the founder going to get a training, a specific or special training for risk management before beginning the business? So is usually the best starting point?
It depends on where you are as a business. Maybe you might be so small such that hiring a risk manager, a permanent risk manager at that point in the business might not make sense. So there are always consultants that you can work with. The other approach is that if your business is not so huge and you're still doing this, say, with a team of less than 5 people, you can opt to enroll your team in a training. And there are many forums and trainings that they can attend to enable them then come home and apply what they've learned to ensure that what they are doing meets a quality framework sort of guidance. So it starts with assessing the context and the scope of your business, understanding that, and then realizing what is best for you. So if you're a big business that has, say, 500 employees, by all means, you can hire a risk manager and they can actually have a job to do full time. But if you're still very small, maybe other options could work for you.
Wow. So now, since you're a woman of many titles, right? So how do you approach situations where, like, you might face as a risk manager, right? And in these challenges, even it's beyond your control. But maybe in an institution, people count on you to handle the situation. What happens there?
So actually, the standards again provide guidance. So you're talking of a situation where there's a risk event that is beyond your control.
Yeah.
First of all, there's escalation, and that's why there's an escalation mechanism in every institution. But really, it starts with, we call it the 4 T's of risk management. So there are 4 things you can always do with any risk in your hands. You can either treat it, you can either tolerate it, if it's something that is tolerable in the business. You can transfer it. Transfer is what we do usually mostly with insurance companies. So if you decide, I have equipment as an entrepreneur, and this equipment cost me, say, 2 million to purchase, and anything could happen, a fire could happen, theft could happen, and you're thinking of how to mitigate that risk. One of the ways you can mitigate it is to transfer by insuring that equipment. And that way, then you remove the risk from your hands, and should any risk event materialize, then the insurance company pays you back. Or you could terminate the risk. The last T is to terminate the risk. If the risk is way beyond what we call a risk appetite, which usually needs to be determined, one of the things you could decide to do is terminate it. So usually when we get risk scenarios in a business, you need to look at them from that approach. And advise as a risk manager, should we treat this risk? Should we tolerate it? Should we transfer it, or should we terminate it? And then depending on who your stakeholders are, in a proper organization, of course, you'd have the CEO, you'd have maybe a chief operations officer, you'd have the board of directors. And even in an entrepreneurial perspective, you'd have really, say, the owner of the business. And astute owners of businesses usually have advisors who they go to when they have issues that need consulting. So depending on what you've recommended as a risk manager, then the stakeholders would sit and discuss on the way forward as regards a particular item. So if it's an issue of equipment, like I've said, and maybe you had not considered insurance, then we could suggest to you that consider insuring your equipment. And that is a decision that can then be ratified and implemented to assist in dealing with the situation at hand.
Amazing.
Yeah, well, I hope the answers are not too textbook to apply. I'm trying to really make them transferable and applicable even to entrepreneurs.
Yeah, that's why we set it there for reference, just in case we need to go and,
go back,
get it again. We have to listen to it
Okay.
over and over again so that we get it.
Yeah.
I have a question. One, in reference to something that most people struggle with, bookkeeping. You said you were CPAK.
Yeah.
And majority of the time, people usually take bookkeeping lightly. So what I'd like you to discuss some of the habits of bookkeeping that are transferable to from one business to another, and two, how important it is for bookkeeping, especially for people, especially when it comes to, like, let's say, like the fraud thing that happens in business. And now when somebody like you, Audrey, who comes into the business, and now you establish that this has been fraud because of the bookkeeping methods that are there, how important is bookkeeping for a company, and the habits of bookkeeping for a company?
It's extremely important to do good, to have good bookkeeping practices for various reasons. One is for the growth of your business. So there's no way you can really manage what's going on in terms of even knowing how much you're spending, how much is coming in per day, without proper bookkeeping. Second, there's an obligation to do so from a regulatory perspective. If you're an entrepreneur in this country or any other country, the tax man is going to be on your back at some point. What will be the basis on which you provide, say, your returns? I've seen many small businesses get into this problem where they don't take bookkeeping seriously. They just sort of come up with very, for lack of a better word, created books for the purposes of tax submission. And when tax people show up at your door asking to see your records, you don't have a record. So the first motivation to keep books is for the sustainability of your business, even before you get to regulatory reasons. And I've seen many off-the-shelf packages or systems that entrepreneurs can use. So you don't have to think of going out to purchase an expensive system like SAP or Oracle for a small business. There are off-the-shelf packages that you can actually use, or systems that you can actually use to help you in your bookkeeping as you start. And as you grow, of course, depending on how the needs of the business evolve, you can always make changes. We've talked about the cash flow perspective. If you think of a proper business, how you know how you're operating, first of all, you have your balance sheet, you have your income statement, which is the revenue and the cost that you're incurring. Then you have your balance sheet, which provides you with your assets. What assets do you own as a business? What are your liabilities, and what is your capital? And when you prepare those books, you actually are able to then tell, is the capital sufficient to finance your business? Are the liabilities you're holding too high for your business, for example, such that your business could collapse overnight? Are you putting and sweating your assets? If you have assets and they're not giving returns, that's one of the biggest mistakes I've seen from many organizations. And this one is not just entrepreneurs. You have assets that are not bringing you returns. That's waste of money and waste of investment opportunities. And those incomes then translate into what goes into your income statement, where you'd see how much revenue am I making as a business and what uses am I putting this revenue to. And you cannot have that view if you don't have proper bookkeeping. So I think I cannot I cannot overestimate the importance of right bookkeeping for entrepreneurs. If their businesses are to do well, it's something that you really need to do, and there are many options out here that can assist you do that.
Wow, amazing. Now, can you maybe tell us a specific challenge you faced in your career and how you turned it into an opportunity for growth?
I thought about that question for a long time. I think one of the challenges that many people would face and have faced is that sometimes it's not up to up to you who you work with. Yeah. If you're employed, for example, today, John, and you walk into a company, all the people that you know are probably the people that sat on your interview panel. And you might be lucky to know the kind of supervisor or kind of person that you're going to work with, and even your teammates. So I've encountered a challenge where I had to work with a really, you could call it a challenging supervisor to work with. And sometimes how you handle these situations can be the make or break of your career, because as long as you're still working in a particular company and you're working with a particular person, then you have the obligation to make that relationship work for your sake. Sometimes it's easy to take the easy way out and jump ship. But what if that is not an option on the table? You could be looking and maybe you're not finding another opportunity, or maybe entrepreneurship is not what you're thinking about in the meantime. Of course, you could exit and start an independent business where you're now the person in charge, but sometimes that's not always an option. So I think the lessons I could share and some I've learned from this book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. It touches on many things in terms of how you script people, and you can script not only those below you, but you can also script those above you. And scripting means, what do I make you see? When I see John, what do I see? Do I see somebody whose attitude is just blatantly outright tired of working with Audrey, or do I see somebody who is making an effort? And through that experience, then you can get to change people or get people to modify their behavior. So sometimes what you receive, you might be on the receiving end, but it might be a reflection of what you're putting in. And key lesson that I've taken out of that is to always put in the positive energy, put in the positive things that you'd like to see in any situation, no matter how difficult it is. And over time, you'll find that the situation gradually improves and you get the best out of that situation.
Amazing.
Myself, I wanted to find out, in your experience, why as a country, especially as a country like countries in Africa, why do we keep going back to that gray area of finance, being listed in being a finance risk area? Why do we keep going back? What's the reason that we keep we never seem to get out of that area of financial risk area for people to invest in?
Like, people are not able to invest in our country, or does it tie back to the money laundering discussion we had earlier?
Yeah, there's a part you mentioned where Kenya is
on the gray list.
On the gray list. So that's not just Kenya alone. I'm not even talking about Kenya alone. I'm talking about majority of the continent. So why are we being like that? And what is it that you've seen on a macroeconomic level that leads to that to that listing that we're not really perceptive of?
I would say the first two things that influence that, one is culture. Culture is a set of behaviors and values, and it starts with, you have individual culture, which would be at my level as Audrey. Then, of course, if you're working in an institution, you have organizational culture, and then we even have a country culture. What are you known for? When you mention Kenya out there, John is in Asia. When he mentions he's from Kenya, what comes to mind? Hopefully the good things, the lions and Masai Mara and the good things. But if you're looking at it from a financial management perspective, as you may know, we've struggled lately from a financial position, but that we had a turnaround when the government restructured the Eurobond. But when you look at issues to do with money laundering, it's the regulations we have, and you've seen Parliament push bills to modify the Money Laundering Act so that it's more lenient to people who might be doing the wrong thing. So for example, the current act requires that for any transaction above $10,000, you have to declare the sources of your funds. And one of the things that our lawmakers wanted to do is to change that threshold. I think take it to a higher figure, which then means if you walk into the bank with $10,000, currently the exchange rate is about 137, 136. It means nobody will ask you the source of that money. So those are some of the indicators in terms of how seriously we take supranational laws and make them our own laws, or are we trying to dilute those laws so that the situation is more favorable for those doing the wrong thing? Or is it an issue of saying that the regulations are so tight such that businesses cannot operate, which will be a different issue? So that's where it starts. So it starts with our issue of culture. The second issue, I believe, is conflict of interest. If you look at our politicians, some of them might be conflicted. And depending on whether they are doing the right thing or not, you might want to change the laws to suit your particular need as a person. And you forget to look at the country as a whole, and the fact that there are so many businesses and so many people who depend on a livelihood from this country. And so the rating and how the country is perceived at the world stage becomes important, not just for you as a politician, but for the country as a whole. So those are the two key factors I would say that influence us. If our leaders were a bit more strict, and if we had more stringent ways in terms of how the law can be changed, because if you look at a country like the US, the process of changing anything, any law, how you have to go through the Congress, then you go to the Senate, it's very stringent. And so you're not able to manipulate things just because you think that's good for you as a person, as opposed to our country. And the moral standing of most of these people, do you pass a bill because there's something promised to you, or do you do it because it's the right thing to do? Basically, I would say that's the challenge that we suffer as a country and as a continent, largely as a continent, because there are many other countries in the same predicament within our continent.
So culture and conflict of interest.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
That's how you become, you're known as inchi ya kitu kidogo, you know that Eric Wainaina's song. But you go to other places, if you try to pass someone some money under the desk to do something for you, you'd end up straight in jail. But in Kenya, maybe it happens from time to time. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And if you look at our rating on Transparency International, which looks at the Corruption Perceptions Index, it would tell you where we stand as a country. Transparency International. Okay. So if you go to Transparency International, every year they release the CPI, which is the Corruption Perceptions Index. Yeah. Yes, and you'd see where Kenya currently ranks. Yeah.
Wow. Audrey, for someone to be having a conversation with you, I think we need glasses, we need another frame of just have to be deep, because you're so deep. This information can easily pass someone, you know, like, you know, like it made me to be so keen. Anyway, how do you balance the demands of work and with personal growth and self-care?
Planning. There are so many things to do, especially in the modern world where, you know, I've had people joke that if you're not careful, you'd find you're scrolling Twitter the whole day. Like, it was 8 a.m. and you just decided to check something, and it's 5 p.m. and you're still on Twitter, or you're still on LinkedIn or somewhere. So planning becomes a very important tool. And how you look at planning, don't do daily planning. If you're to be successful and if your planning is to have an impact, you first begin at a broader level. For example, a monthly plan, where you think of all the goals that I want to achieve as an individual, what can I do in the month of March? And then once you have the monthly view of what you want to achieve, then bring it down to a weekly perspective. So if you're doing a course, for example, maybe you're doing a short course on entrepreneurship through one of the online learning platforms, and you know you have 4 weeks in a month. you'd be thinking, this month I want to probably finish half of the coursework. And then if you're to finish half of the coursework, you're thinking, what do I need to do per week? And does that fit into your schedule as an employee if you're employed? So for example, I'm employed, I'm doing a short course, I have kids, I have to go home and check on their homework. When you have that weekly perspective, then you come down to the daily perspective. And you sort of decide, like, between this hour and this hour of every single day, this is what I would be doing. So for example, on my calendar, between 4:30 p.m. and 6 p.m. every day, I ask myself, what new thing do I want to learn? So if I've enrolled in a course, those are the hours I would use sorry, just a minute. So those are the hours I would use to do the studying, go online, review materials, listen into the classwork, and ensure that you've learned something new at the end of the day before you go home. And then you should have a plan of when you go home, what are you going to do? If you have children, for example, you might have children, you might not. When you get home, what is it that you want to do? It's easy to get home and just jump on the couch and start watching TV again. And then the next thing you know, it's 10 p.m. So if you're not intentional about how you plan your time, you'd find that the years and time is just going by, and really you've never self-improved yourself. And so you really have to be intentional of what you're doing with every hour of your time in every single day. If your day starts at 5 a.m., what are you starting with? Some people start with meditation. If you're a Christian like me, you'd want to read your Bible during that time. It's actually the best time to do that, because once the day starts, you'll hit the road. Things are largely out of your control. The rest of the working day might be out of your control. And when you look at planning from a weekly perspective, then you take things into your own hands as opposed to being reactive. So you become proactive in the sense that you already know which meetings you're having in a particular week and with who you're having those meetings. And so if you have to have any reschedules, then they become rare reschedules. But at the same time, you ensure that your time is productive.
Wow. Before Munene comes in, maybe because you said in your leadership philosophy all about kindness. Yeah. Maybe what role does kindness play in your leadership philosophy, and how do you incorporate it into your interaction with others?
When I think of kindness, I think of it as we all have made it because somebody was kind to you. There's probably an opportunity maybe you didn't even deserve, but somebody thought, let me give John this chance. I might not have seen the best, but I think he can do something about it. And when people are given chances as human beings, I found that motivates them. And even looking back at my own journey, today I'm where I am because somebody believed in you. Maybe you didn't even have all the qualifications for the job. I remember when I applied for my current job, one of the requirements for the job was that you had to have a complete master's. My master's was work in progress at the time. But based on the explanation I provided and the reasons as to why it was still work in progress, somebody had faith in me and said, you know what, we are going to try and give you this opportunity. So I've now made it my mission in life to also look at others with the same lens of kindness and give people an opportunity, because that opportunity could be the difference between their success and their failure. And so don't be quick to turn people away. Don't be quick to think that people are not as smart, because there's a certain level of maybe smartness that you expect based on how you've been brought up or the environments that you've been exposed to, and to learn that people are really different. Some people are good at expressing themselves verbally. Some are not. Some, you could give them a job and they just sit at their computer and they do a good job, but they're not able to express themselves verbally. So if you look beyond what you see when you look at people, there's probably a potential that lies in there. And I believe it's important that you become someone that facilitates others to achieve what they were truly meant to achieve in life. I saw a quote earlier on saying that we are always praying and wishing and hoping for what we want as individuals. And so you need someone to be a destiny helper to assist you get to where you want to get. But have you ever thought of yourself as being the destiny helper to somebody else? So you're looking for mentors to mentor you. For example, I do have mentors, but have you stopped to ask yourself that, or to realize you can actually mentor? So you don't only have to be on the receiving or the taking position. There's an opportunity for you to give in whatever position you are. Even if you're a fourth year student, for example, I could be mentoring someone who is just straight out of college right now. I've been out of college for many years, but that person could sit in that position and think they don't have anything to offer. They have something to offer. They could mentor someone who is in high school right now and mentor them in terms of what can you expect in college, what course can you do? How do the different courses affect your career trajectory? And so let's make it a habit to always step back and look at the people younger than you, people behind you in the career ladder, and how you can assist them actually to get to the place they want to get, or actually even get in your shoes. So that's basically sums up what I believe about kindness and the role it plays in helping others.
Wow. Nene, maybe you wanna come in?
For me, it's just one last question before you go.
Yeah.
Failures. I believe every successful person has failures.
Has failures. Yeah.
So maybe if it's okay with you, you can share maybe a failure story and the lesson that you learned from that failure that might be very crucial for young people, especially in this time.
Okay, this might sound like a statement you hear a lot, but I believe everything happens for a reason. Even the failures you have as an individual happen for a reason. And if you look more closely at those failures, there's a reason they were meant to, there's a lesson they were meant to teach you. I remember in the year 2015, I was applying for a job. I was looking for a new opportunity. Yeah. And I applied to 2 institutions that are in financial services. And going through the motions of the interview, I was so sure I've gotten this job, like you're so confident. All you're waiting for is an email confirmation that you have it. Then for both of those opportunities, actually, they came back with a regret. And I remember how crushed I was at that point in time. But looking back from where I sit now, I'm really grateful they did that to me. And I'm grateful for many reasons. 1, I couldn't be where I am if I had taken up that opportunity. 2, sometimes failures make you appreciate your current situation. You might be thinking you're in such a bad place until you actually have an actual failure. Then you realize, I'm not doing so badly after all. And when you appreciate what you have, then you value it more. And sometimes that's what failures do for us. And when you value something, then you start to treat it with the seriousness it deserves. Subsequently, after those failures, I decided to focus on where I was currently working at the time. And that's when I actually got the opportunity to move to the US. And so if I'd gotten that opportunity at that time, I would have probably never been on that program. Where I had an opportunity to work out of the country, and did so many things for me. In terms of opening, it's an eye opener, just seeing how people live differently, how people work differently, the different values that people have. So I would always advise anyone that is facing a moment of failure to take it in stride and to use it as a moment of reflection and a moment of meditation, in the sense that don't miss the lesson in the failure. Sometimes we become so obsessed with our failures that you miss the lesson that you could have picked up. Because one of the things my mentor has always told me is that failures will come, and they might not, it's not a one-off event. You might fail today, you might fail tomorrow. And through life, just through going through the motions of life, failure will always show up in one way or another. Sometimes they are big failures, sometimes they are small failures. And the only thing that you can do for yourself is take the lesson, build on it, and come back better and come back greater. So that's what I would say about failure. And I would encourage anyone going through it to know that it's not the end. It's not the end. It's probably only the beginning. Yeah.
Thank you
Wow.
so much. Thank you so much.
Can my failure also take me to Maldives? Jesus, I'm praying the God of Audrey.
It can.
It can. Maldives?
I'm telling you, it can. It all depends on what you want to convert it to. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. Okay. Also for me, my last question now, maybe just be directed to you again. Looking ahead, what are your goals and aspirations for the future, both professionally and personally?
That's a good question. I look at my goals. I'm at a point in life, I'm looking at my goals. You've heard of the Abraham Maslow's sort of triangle from organizational theory, where, when you're beginning out life, it's just about survival. Can I have a plate of food on my table? Can I afford rent? Can I afford? And then if you're blessed enough, you go through life and those stop being your problems, and then your problems keep graduating. And that's how you move through the triangle to self-actualization. So when I start thinking of where I want to be now, I'm looking at things that would move me into self-actualization. And that could be either vertical or horizontal. Looking at where I am, for example, I'm employed, I report to the CEO. So if I'm to look at new things to do, it will be either to grow upwards or to grow horizontally. And one of the things I'm thinking into the future, one day I would want to be a CEO. And that's a plan I want to start on working on right now. When you think of a goal, you have to start thinking of what do you need to do now, so that 5-10 years down the line, that goal can actually become a reality. And there's work that you need to put into it. I also want to contribute to various organizations meaningfully. Like I mentioned in my introduction, I happen to have various skill sets from risk management, sustainability, money laundering, and I'm looking for opportunities to contribute to these organizations. So it doesn't have to be by working with them. You can be an advisor to these people. You can be someone they call and bounce off ideas off of you if it touches on something. If you're looking at third-party risk management, and someone could be asking you, how do I manage risks emanating from my third parties as an entrepreneur, for example, or as a small business, as an SME? I'm looking for opportunities to actually share that knowledge, because you find that you might not actually be using all the knowledge that you have wherever you are. So that's something I would want to do. I'm looking to positively impact others by doing a lot of writing. So if there's an area that I'm knowledgeable about, I want to do a lot of writing and just send out that information so that others read and also learn from it. And that's just a summary. Of course, there's so many goals. So one of the things that my mentors always asked me to do, which I've never done, and maybe I can pass that challenge to you. She asked me to write a list of 100 wishes or aspirations that you have in life. I didn't know how hard that is. I'm still on number 20 something. 100 list of things that authentic wishes and hopes that you have that you want to achieve in this lifetime. So that's something that you can actually try doing, and let me know which number you get to. If you get to number 100, that will be great. Yeah.
Hopefully, because also me, I thought that there's a time I think I was told to do, I think it's maybe 40 or 30. By the time I was 19, I was like, oh my Lord, I thought I had so many things in mind.
Yeah. And if you do those 19 things, and your time, your clock was cut at that point, would you say you've gone away having done everything that you believe you were created to do and to achieve? That's one way that to think about it, that can make you realize that actually probably you haven't.
Wow. But I'll try this. I'll try. Munene, this is a challenge. You're gonna do it, and we're gonna say notes. How much time do you
Yeah.
have for this, Andrew?
Try a month. if you
month.
make it within a month, I will have a prize. Yes.
Jesus, you make me even look for aspirations for my grandkids.
No, these are supposed to be your aspirations as John or as Munene,
Mm-hmm.
not for your children, not for your brothers, not for your sisters, just you. Yeah.
But are you sure as a human we have more than 70 aspirations for life? Like how many years are we supposed to live to have all those aspirations with this new age era of ours?
Yes. I know it sounds tough, but it's a challenge that you should take up.
It's a challenge. Okay, we'll pick it up. Thank you so much, Audrey. I think Munene, someone has called him. He might have logged out because of a call.
Okay.
But I'm really grateful. I appreciate your time. This one is going to be a record. We're gonna get some sneak peek, post on LinkedIn, some post on YouTube.
Yeah.
The whole audio is gonna be on Spotify. So I'm really grateful. So many projects coming up ahead, and really looking forward to. Okay, again. I'm really looking forward to you coming through for us so that we can make a difference to the African continent and globally. Yeah. Munene, you're here again. Maybe let's see if Munene is coming back. Okay, you're back. We were finishing, Munene.
Yeah.
There's construction happening over here, so
sorry.
Yeah, a bit of disruption. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're finishing. Maybe you have last words?
For Munene, go ahead, Munene.
Yeah, for me or for me?
No, for you, Munene.
Oh, yeah. So Audrey, thank you so much for your insight, especially in everything that we've talked about today. I actually even see you becoming that CEO that you're aspiring to be, because at the end of the day, somebody generous, so generous with the wealth of the information and knowledge that you've gained over the years in this short amount of time, and articulating it the way you've articulated is evident that you clearly know the direction that you want to go in, and we thank you for your time. Everybody who's going to see this is going to be very appreciative of all the input, and we hope that this relationship is not just for now. It's going to expand all the way into the future. A lot of people would love to hear from someone with your wealth of experience and wealth of knowledge from the various fields that you've been in. Yes. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, and
Audrey, last words
from a person. Just one last thing. From a person who's written, like I draw and I write also. Yeah. I have been drawing and writing for the last 6 years. From somebody who's been writing, you should start. It's very therapeutic.
A book.
Yeah.
I should start a book. I actually started one in 2018 and then dropped it. So this is inspiration now to keep going.
Yeah, you should start. You should start. Amazing.
Because even from the point I was listening to, like, this is something that you see how you go back and reference from a book over and over again. This is what you're someone who, if someone doesn't pay attention, he will lose a very important point that you're giving out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Maybe your last words as we finish.
Yeah.
I think the only thing I didn't share is that you need to encourage, or we need to encourage, this network of entrepreneurs that you're mentoring to embrace a culture of learning. I think it's easy to say, mimi ni mtu wa biashara, so I don't know all these things. When you talk sustainability, I don't know. When you talk climate change, I don't know. But if you embrace a culture of learning, there are so many avenues through which you can learn. If you have a business and you're starting a business, say, that is skewed towards healthcare, the World Health Organization has like a lot of resources out there, which are free. If you just Google World Health Organization Learning Portal, There's a lot. If you look at the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, there's a lot of information. If you want to take a course, say, on anti-bribery, they have all that material. If you go to Coursera, there are so many courses, and most of them are free, actually. Of course, there are the paid ones if you go to the United Nations. So depending on what you're venturing into as an entrepreneur, they even actually have courses on entrepreneurship and the principles of entrepreneurship that make things work. So it's to encourage anyone out there listening to just embrace a culture of learning. Actually, that's what differentiates people. You might think I know so much, but maybe the only difference between me and the next person is that they've not embraced a culture of learning. And when you embrace a culture of learning, that's how you build yourself, not just for yourself, but if you're looking into going into a business or even employment, that's the only way to go. So that's one thing they can always keep in mind.
Wow, what a very nice way to end it.
Yes.
I've just seen that video of the way TikTok viral videos go. Start learning, importance of learning.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Audrey.
Thank you so much.
Day.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
We'll send you more projects that are coming. Our magazine is almost ready. So look out for your face to be there. We have your pictures, so you might see. We're like, when did I send this picture?
Perfect.
So we'll you look really, really, really good. Hadi guys will ask you, are you sure these guys are from Kenya?
Is the CEO. This is a CEO. They'll just say this is a CEO.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you, and let's keep the conversation going. Thank you. I hope, like you've mentioned, I really hope many will find this valuable.
Yeah, they will, definitely. All right. Have a wonderful day, Audrey.
Have a wonderful day.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.